Welcome to Beaded Doilies by Shell. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to stitch your doilies together to make a beaded doily patchwork. First you will want to make several doilies. For the piece I am making I need a total of 7 because I'm doing 1 in the center and then 6 around. With this piece you can see I used the same design and colors throughout the whole piece as I'm doing for the piece for the video. For this one I used the same colors, but I used different designs for the whole piece. And for this piece, which I'll be showing you later, I used all different colors for the piece. So you have lots of options when creating a beaded doily patchwork. When you do, you can either make all of the doilies ahead of time and then patch them together, or you can make them one at a time and stitch them together as you go. For the first two, you would just have one side. For the round doilies, you want to stitch together the flat side. So as each one gets longer, the flat side will be longer. If you're going to stitch together hexagon doilies, you would just do the sides, all 6 sides. Let's see, so let's go ahead and begin. As you can see, with 2 you would just have one side to stitch together. If you're going to do it around and just make a larger round doily, as I'm doing here, then the next one I'm going to add, I would have 2 sides to stitch together. You would first want to figure out where you want your new doily to fit onto your piece. And once you've done that, you want to make sure that the doily is laying the way you want it to for your piece. So for this one, I look at the designs on the 6 sides and match them up. So let's see, we have a yellow, yellow, and blue, pink. And then let's make sure blue, yellow, yep. Okay, so this is the direction I want this piece to be. Then I'm going to first show you the 2 needle stitch, and then I will show you with the 1 needle stitch. What you want to do is you first want to add the bead that you're going to stitch it together with to your string, and then you want to go into the second side bead towards the 3rd one, and then you also want to go into the 3rd. So you want to go in the 2nd and 3rd side bead of the doily you're adding, and do the same to the doily you're stitching it to, the 2nd and 3rd side bead. Bring your string together. Now you'll take a 2nd bead and cross. Then you'll repeat, going through the next 2 side beads on each doily. Bring your strings together. Then you add a bead and cross. Now at this point, oh, my string, hold on, my string went through itself here, so I'll pull that out. Well, as I was going to say, at this point I've come to the last bead I'm going to add, so I would tie my knot. So you can put it on one string and then tie your knot, which I do a single knot and then a double overhand, And then I go through that last bead I'm adding. And tuck my knot away inside of it. And there I have added my doilies, stitched my doilies together. Then of course I always thread back through to secure my string. And I'm going to leave it at that for now. Now for this side, I want to show you a nice little thing. As you could use larger doilies, you'll have more space to work with. And if you want to, you can start the same. You add your bead to your string. Remember, this is the 2-needle version. And then you go through the second bead on each. And then, instead of just going through the third, you can go through the next two also. You just want to make sure that when you do this, you do it evenly. For the regular, you'd go do 2 beads at a time, or you can do 4, 6, 8. You'll want to see how many beads are on the side of your doily and plan ahead of time what you want to do. But here I'm going through all 4 side beads that I will be using to stitch my doily together. And then you have, as you can see, a little design with a gap in between it. And that would be, for this size, I prefer to use all 3 beads because it feels more secure to me. But for a larger piece, where you have more space to work with, adding little gaps in between your beads can add a little extra design to your full doily. Now I'm going to show you the same, let's move over here, technique, but with the 1-needle stitch. Now, like I said, you want to lay out your piece where you want to attach it. Then you want to compare it to your piece to make sure that it is laying correctly. And see, for me, I have pink, blue, then 2 yellows, 2 pinks, blue, pink, 2 yellows, and 2 blues. So it is laying out the way I want it. Then for the 1-needle stitch, what I recommend is that you first go through the second and, you would need to attach your string, that's right. I'm thinking like the 2-needle. Okay, for the first, you want to go through the second towards the third, and then you want to attach your string to your piece. So I recommend that you use the inside of your finished doily to do this. So I'm going to go in a couple of beads to find myself a center bead to work off of. So I'll be using this yellow bead here. And then I'm going to follow the yellow bead up, and I'm going to go 3 center beads. Keep losing the end of my string. So I'm going to go 2 side beads and 1 center. Then another 2 side beads and a second center. And then 2 more side beads and a third center. Then you go back the way you came. And weaving is very important. You want to make sure to go through those center beads because that helps, or is actually how the string is secured. So go up to your two sides and make sure to go through your center bead. And then once you're back where you began, you can clip off the excess. Now that I've got that, I want to double check everything's lined up. Alright, so once your string is secured, then you add one bead to it. And you go through the second and third on your piece you're attaching. Then you add a second bead. And you go back through the second and third, but in the opposite direction. You want to do the third one and then the second one. And that attaches. Now you want to work yourself around back to that second bead you added. So we go through the first bead we added, then the two side beads, and then the second bead we added. Then you want to go through your next two side beads, and you will add your next bead and head back towards the last bead you added. And then you can go through that last bead you added, and then you'll repeat that process depending on how long the side of your doily is. And once you've come to the last one and you've threaded back through that previous bead you added, then you can secure the end of your string. This time I'm going to follow a row of pink center beads. So we'll go through the two sides, into the pink. That's our first center, then two sides, second center, two sides, and third center happens to be blue. Now we head back, right, and that is attaching to with the one needle stitch. Now what I want to also show you is if you want to do a gap like I did previously with the one needle stitch, you'll again go through the second bead and secure your string. To save time here, I'm just going to thread through and leave the string there. Then, just like when you did on the regular, you'll add your first bead, And if you want to do the gap, you'll just go into the second, and then you go along as many beads as you want for your gap. Remember, you want an even number. So we've gone through 1, so we're going to go through 3 more. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you'll add the bead for the other end. And then you'll thread back, making sure to go into the correct bead that matches up. You want 4 on this side also, so that's 1, 2, oops, got my bead inside it, string inside itself, okay, 2, 3, 4, and now we're back where we began. And then you want to make sure to go through that bead here, and then you can secure the string on the other side, and that is doing the 1 needle and allowing yourself to have a little bit of a gap. So that is how you can attach any of my round or hexagon doilies together. The only difference, which I'm going to show you with this piece, is with my smallest doily, you only have 1 place here where you can attach. So as doing the circle you need 2, you will need to do this slightly differently. So when I create a small doily, what I usually like to do is test ahead of time to see how long a string I need to have enough left over to use to attach my doily. So when you do that, as you add your last 4 beads, the last circle, onto your small doily, you'll put 3 of the beads on 1 string, and this is for the 2 needle stitch. When you're doing the 1 needle stitch, you may want to just finish up the doily, and then I'm going to be showing you something you can do in a few minutes for attaching if you're working with the 1 needle stitch. Then I tie my knot, and I slip it into the 3rd bead on the side where I added 3. And I pull tight. And now, as you can see, this one here is coming out between, you have 2 on this side, 2 on this side, so it's coming out the center of my circle. Then I take the other one and I thread it to the other side, so it's coming out of the center of this one over here. And now it is ready to attach. Now this piece I'm going to be attaching right here, as this is a weather doily. It was a challenge idea from Seed Beads and More Facebook group, and I'm doing the highs and the lows for the month of January. So this is the high for this day, and this is the low, so I'm attaching it here. So this one is symmetrical, so I don't need to worry about whether it's laying correctly, because it's the same all directions. So I'm all set. So all I need is to add my bead, and then where I'm going to attach, what I do is I go around this entire circle here. So I go in one side and work my way all the way around the circle. and then I go through the bead that I added, and then I look at my end here, and the string is coming out of the left bead here, so I want to make sure to go into the right bead. You want to go into the opposite bead that your string is coming out of, and then I work my string around this circle so that it is coming towards the center of my two circles that I'm attaching with, and that way I can tie off after I've attached both sides. Now I'm going to attach the other side, and I do the same thing. I go all the way around the circle, then I go through the bead I added, and then I determine which bead my string is coming out of, and I go into the other one, and then I thread around so my strings are both with this center circle here, and then I want both my strings on the same side of the center, so I'm going to go through it with this string. And now my bead string are both coming out this side of this center bead. So I can now tie my knot. And then I slip inside that center bead between the two circles that I attached with. And I pull my knot inside of it and pull tight. And that is how you attach the small doilies together. Now, for this next one, and you do want to thread your string, but I'm not going to do that. I want to save time. So this next one is going to go here, and as you can see, it attaches to 1, 2, 3, 4 other doilies. So what I'm going to show you with this one is for a new string. Now, one way, if you are doing the one needle stitch and you don't have the extra string for two of your sides, you can also do this idea. Now, to get the length, what you do is measure this arch in your two circles that you're going to be attaching with for the string, and then do it 3 times like this, and then add for your securing of your string. You want to make sure to do for 2. So this is 1, and then that would be about 2. Then you would take and figure out which corners you want to be coming out of, and you would enter the first corner and follow along the arch to the second one, so that your string is coming out, 2 of them. Now the difference between this and when it's secured already is that you want to do both at the same time to make sure your string remains the same length on both pieces. So I'm going to add a bead to each. And then I want to make sure I'm connecting it. I want these 2 here I'm going to connect to. So I will start with this bottom circle, and I'll go all the way around just like I did earlier. Then I'll go through the bead that I added, and I'll pause there while I go through the bottom circle over here. And again, you want to go all the way around it. Just want to make sure that you are attaching to the correct one. You want to just make sure not to pull your string too tight so that you don't pull out the other side. Then you go through the bead that you added on this side. And then at this point, I recommend taking both of your strings, bringing them together, and then holding your piece and pulling them so that they're the same length. And then what I do is I figure out, again, like I said, you want to go into the opposite bead that from which your string is coming out. So this side, the string is coming out on the left, so I want to go into the right bead. And on this side, the string is coming out of the right, so I want to go into the left bead. And then I'm going to circle around and meet at this center bead between my two circles. And this is the technique I recommend for both 1 needle and 2 needle. And then one of your strings will go through that center bead and you'll tie your knot. Now normally with the 1 needle you wouldn't be able to tie a knot with the way it works, but with this particular technique you can. So you can tie your knot and secure it. Because your ends don't usually meet in the 1 needle stitch. And then just go down the center. I usually go to from the center bead that your knot is inside of, I go 2 center beads, and this just makes sure that your knot doesn't work itself loose over time. If your string is too short and too close to it, that can happen. And that is how you attach for the smallest doily, which only has the 1 instead of 2 places where you can do the circle technique that is done with the doilies. And that is Beaded Doily Patchwork. I hope that you find this video useful. Oh, I also forgot to mention, with the regular size doilies, when you need to figure out your string, you want to do the same thing I showed you earlier with the small doilies, is you find the side you're going to attach and you measure it 1 time, and then you go 3 times with it, 3 times, and then you do enough to secure your string. You want to make sure you have enough that you can secure both ends for the 1 needle and the 2 needle, and then you have a piece long enough to attach your doilies together. Happy beading!